Okay, so here's number one. Whether yours looks like this or not, I'm going to show you some of the key features. I carefully drew an equator and the Earth's axis on all four of my Earth images, and this is an image of Earth at both the equinoxes and both solstices. And I made sure when I drew the equator and the Earth's axis, do you see how they're all orientated the same for each circle? Because that's one thing I want you to remember. Earth's axis always points in the same direction. So I had to make sure that when I drew the axis pointing in this direction, I did the same thing for each of these. The other thing that I paid close attention to is I took that equator so that I could tell the difference between the northern and southern hemisphere. And so what I decided to do is shade in the southern hemisphere, so that makes it visually obvious that as you go around the sun, winter is when the northern hemisphere is tilted away from the sun, and summer is when it's tilted towards the sun. When you draw Earth's revolution around the sun, you can't visually tell what's going on with the equinox, but you can visually see winter and summer. And then, a couple things I think I should have probably labeled. I should have probably labeled that these are equinoxes. This is an equinox. And this is a solstice. And this is a solstice. Maybe I also could have labeled that this path is known as Earth's orbit. And the verb we use for that is the revolution of Earth. As Earth goes around the sun, that's revolution. And I think that takes care of most of, it says diagram the solar system, use seasonal patterns, I did that. Include illustrations, I did that. And then I think all the important science terms are labeled on that diagram. So try to take what you have and add these pieces to it if you were missing some of these pieces. And we'll probably redraw it today. We're going to study. We have a test tomorrow. Can you guys do Quizlet on Chrome?
Yeah.
Okay, we might end the hour with a Quizlet. As long as it, or maybe I meant Kahoot. I think I meant Kahoot. As long as I really don't know the difference.
Both the same thing, but like Kahoot, you can see where you currently are.
Okay, let's vote Kahoot or Quizlet. Raise your hand if you like Kahoot. Raise your hand if you like Quizlet. Hey, you. Remember? Okay. Any questions on this? Do we still need a little bit of time? Are you guys freshening up your illustrations?
I don't have any.
Okay, I'm going to move on. Let's look at the next two questions. That's okay, as long as you have it now. All right, next page. All right, here's the answers. But I'm gonna give you a little explanation as we go over the answers. So, yeah, number 2, it says, which S explains why Earth is colder at the poles than at the equator. So I'm going to go through each one. You know, A says Earth is farther from the sun at the poles than the equator. That is not the reason the poles are cold. We have learned in lesson 1 that distance is not a factor when it comes to temperatures. B is Earth's orbit is not a perfect circle. Well, that's true, it's not a perfect circle, but that's also not a factor in why the poles are cold. C, Earth's rotation is tilted. That's true. And that does factor in on why the poles are colder, but let's see if D might be a better answer. Earth's surface is more tilted at the poles than the equator. Out of all of those, D would be the best explanation for why the poles are colder. Just like in the next image, when I took a flashlight and tilted the index card, that light spread out over a larger area, and that means the energy gets spread out and you don't get as much heat. The curve of Earth does the same thing as the tilted card. So the poles are more tilted than the equator, and that is why the poles are colder. That's the best answer. Yes. Okay. For number 3, predict the pattern of the light that will appear on each sheet of paper when the flashlight is turned on. I did this simulation for you, and we all saw it happen. The circle turns into an elongated, stretched out oval. And the only explanation down below that says that is A, the pattern on the vertical paper will be a circle. The pattern that appears on the tilted paper will be an elongated, spread out circle. Trying to simulate that solar energy gets spread out as Earth curves. Okay, so questions on this page. Okay, let's look at the last page then. How about I take volunteers and you share what you had? Okay, you in the front, go. Yeah, you.
I put seasonal change affects our usage of energy because when it gets cold, we use energy to stay warmer. We need less when it gets warmer.
Yeah. When it gets cold, we have to turn on the heaters. Yeah, we have to turn on the heat and use electricity. And some of us in the summer, when it gets real hot, we turn on the AC, and that uses electricity. And what seasons would you maybe use less AC and heat? Yeah, kind of fall and spring. You can let up on the use of the AC and heat. And I think it was in this class we looked up yesterday. I read somewhere it takes 3 times as much energy to heat a home than to cool it. So out of summer and winter, maybe there's even more use of electricity in the winter. Oh, yeah. Okay, go ahead. Share your answer, you.
I said some animals hibernate or migrate.
Yeah. So there's a word, hibernate. Do you think hibernate has anything to do with seasons? Yeah, I do think so. Yep, you.
I think a lot of animals grow or migrate.
Okay, we have changes in, I think for now, I can't think of a better word, changes in coat or fur. And then also we have migration patterns. These are all, yes, affected by seasons. Does that hit everything? Does anyone have anything in addition to those things? Okay, yes, go again. Okay, so as humans, we change. We are an animal, so we change our attire. You know, I'm digging out my winter clothes now. Very good. Anything else in addition to these things? Yes.
Some animals are affected by it because they have to store food during the summer.
Oh, good. Yep. We have changes in, we can just say changes in behavior to cover all of that stuff. I mean, yeah, animals will definitely, so changes in behavior will cover everything, like changes in behavior and appearance to fit those seasonal changes. I think I spelled appearance wrong, but that's okay. Okay. Yeah, very good. Good job. So that's our review.